All right, Godtear enthusiasts, before we jump into Rangosh and some of the Slayer Tactica, we're going to build that Tactica checklist. I think there's a little bit of background that we need to frame this particular vlog in, because Godtear, while it's a skirmish, a miniature skirmish-based game, there are some very, very unique characteristics in jumping into this game. And coming from a background of playing Games Workshop skirmish games and other small figure, low model count games, my skills did not immediately port over. I should say my experience did not immediately port over due to the dynamic nature of the game, the dynamic nature of the Godtears themselves, and the classification between the champions and the followers. So you look really quick, and while the boards look absolutely fantastic, the terrain themselves are the Godtears. As of this vlog, as of right now, and I've seen a couple of homebrew missions and some homebrew ideas to add physical terrain, hex blocking terrain to the game. And while one can do that, and I'm all for home rules and house rules, we are going game as intended, game as played. What you notice really fast is that the Godtears themselves act as terrain. And based on the mission, how they grow, how they expand, how they change, it's almost like literally living terrain and living tiers. So this kind of plays into the Tactica with Rangosh and the other Slayers, but he's certainly the most powerful. I mean, Sneaky Pete, secondary, Kira, third. But the challenge with Rangosh is he's just a beast. He just moves in massive volume of dice, just absolutely smashes stuff, and in 2 or 3 turns, 2 being the average, whatever he hits in terms of champions, he's going to destroy. And this has kind of a cascading effect because, first of all, being a Slayer, he's going to get the bonus. Then he's going to get the points for knocking out your champion, and then depending on the champion itself, you're now going to have to spend turn resources to pull that champion back. And this is where things get interesting, because if it's another Slayer champion that's cutting down on the killie in your war list, and if it's a support champion like Shale, that kind of takes out Landslide, and that takes out the supporting nature of Shale. So Rangosh killing is extremely powerful, and if the dice gods are with you, you can potentially one-punk something before we get into the boons and banes and things like that, adding that on. So how are we supposed to counter this character? What are we supposed to do? Because, again, pulling in from other skirmish games, the way you would counter that is through terrain. If there's a ruined building or if there's impassable terrain, I'm going to kind of dance around that. Well, the Godtears are terrain, but they don't block the champions. So essentially, Rangosh can like run across the board. So the first Tactica, of course, is point or click, run across the board, beat up a bunch of stuff, crack some skulls, break some jaws, crack some heads, and just kind of destroy everything in its path. So this is now where the Tactica plays in. The first question to ask in building the checklist, since we can't use terrain to block, can I kill Rangosh? Can I take him out? And in doing so, what does that leave the other champions in my list? Am I playing 1, 2, or 3 champions? Sometimes you get to the point where it's like, okay, yes, based on the volume of dice that I can generate and possibly break through, I could kill Rangosh, but how many points am I going to get doing that, especially if I have to get into position and attack and I'm not necessarily planting my banners to claim? Or would I be better off banking on those guaranteed 4 points by having banners? So that's the first question. I might be able to kill him, but I've spent the rest of my resources for that turn doing that. That essentially leaves the rest of my opponent's warband, 1, 2, or 3 champions, to just kind of run amok. So that's not always the best. What I find is point mitigation. And this is where some of the warbands with more minions come in handy. Being able to use them as a shield wall, being able to use them to physically block off, taking possibly into account opposing miniatures, So Rangosh will run up, he'll kill something, he'll kill one of my minions, okay, or followers, I should say. He'll get the points for that, or the mission points for that, but I'm giving away less on that sliding scale. I'm trying to give away the least amount that I can every single turn. But I do find he's a very, very powerful champion, one of the more powerful champions, and I would say, as of this vlog, Slayer-wise, the most powerful, but it's this duality. That's the tactic, because I don't have the line of sight or impassable blocking terrain. I either have to try and punk him myself, and if I can, great. Maybe through those ranged attacks and kind of pushbacks. That's one way to do it. But expending resources, or looking to block as best I can. And if I'm going to give up the points, give up the least amount of points and then focus on the rest.